Here's one of my old mainstays again, it's Prince of Persia. We're playing this month over at dosgameclub.com, which is a great little project set up by Martin Fraser and Florian Kessler, where people replay and share their thoughts on many of the DOS games that we grew up with. They and the rest of the club are great to talk to, so please give it a look even if you followed my channel because of the Hatoful stuff and you've never played a game on DOS in your life. It's always amazing to hear people's thoughts when they come at them for the first time. That said, I already know Prince of Persia back to front and upside down because I've played and speedrunned, spedrun, whatever it is, so much over the years, so I tried something new for this month and learned how to record a TAS. That stands for Tool Assisted Speedrun, and it's called that because it's really a computer playing the game, assisted by me. This is different from a normal speedrun, where you play the game yourself and you try to blitz through it in as fast a time as possible. For Tool Assisted Speedruns, you use special emulators where you can step through the game frame by frame, you can decide to toggle inputs on and off, you can snapshot save and jump back and re-record sections when you want, and as you're doing that, you're essentially writing a program to play the game for you, a list of key presses and the precise moments at which they should be held down and let go. Then you play that program back with the game running, so the computer replays all your inputs, and in theory you have a perfect play of the game. To beat a tool-assisted speedrun, you have to write a better program that uses different exploits or is more efficient in other ways. The tricks I use in this run are pretty well known in the Prince community, and I referenced some of the ways to set them up from the Captain Clever run that he did at AGDQ 2016, which I'll link in the description. I'll attempt to explain the rest as we go, so let's start the timer. We're starting at level 4, I'll explain why later, and immediately we do some odd movements to line ourselves up very precisely. Normally the guard here just turns round when he hears you, but if you bump into the door from a pixel-perfect distance he'll think you're close enough to pursue, and obligingly step on the button to open the door for you. That lets us skip most of the level, then we immediately do another shuffle over to line ourselves up again and leap at him. Again, if you time this exactly right, his swipe at you will miss and you'll teleport to the other side of him. Exactly the same goes for this next guard. The prince will then automatically take his sword out and face him, but if you get him far enough away you can then put your sword away again and run. This game has a lot of tricks to the movement, because while the environment is based on the grid, the prince isn't. The game just does a really good job of helping him align to the grid when he really needs to. Most of the time you want to be jumping along the ground like you've been seeing me doing here because it's faster than walking, but the difference between jumping and walking can also change how you're lined up with obstacles or guards. You'll see me doing some odd movements using creeping steps and bunny hops or crashing into walls, and that's to get a pixel perfect alignment for a trick to work. I'm turning off the sound here because otherwise there's a musical sting that plays at the end of each level that you can't skip. After that you just back away from the guard, run up the stairs and let him contemplate his life choices. Level 5. This also has a way to bypass most of the level due to a bug with how the screens change during sword fights and how collision detection is handled. We need the help of this guard here that I previously thought you had to fight. Instead, we're going to lead him down to the lower level and use him to enter a fight where we normally couldn't. It's unusual to have a fight situation where you can be so far away from a guard, so I'm not sure what happened there. The prince automatically drew his sword but then rethought it. Anyway, I'm now hitting left constantly as I'm off the screen with the prince still on guard, and eventually the screen realised it should change, but by the time it's done that, somehow he's gone straight through the closed gate and done another large skip. That means that there's now only a simple alternating section of running and fighting to reach the end of the level. If this were a normal speedrun, I'd have to concentrate on the keys I'm pressing as well as memorise the layout of the guards and pits that lie ahead, but as I played this frame by frame, it was much easier to guide the prince along the optimal route. It was also interesting to see when the guards' reactions were decided. They seemed to be consistent in whether they would block or miss from just after I'd input my next move. Small unavoidable wait for the door to raise, then it's on to the next one. Level 6 is the shortest in the game, but it has an extremely awkward layout of spikes and pits going left here that stops you running right over it, and I'm pretty sure there's a better way to do it than I did here, especially the double standing jump that seems really slow. The game's mid-boss fatty is really no big deal, especially with our Psycho Mantis speedrun powers. You need to wait for the door to raise precisely so you don't bang your head and waste time on your escape. Coming up here, there's a bit where you're meant to jump over the pit only to have a door closed on you by the shadow and be forced to fall down, but it's faster to just do it ourselves. Here we are on level 7, and by the way, yes, I am starting to think that trying to present meaningful commentary over the speedrun might have been a mistake. Nevertheless, I'm not using that guard skipping trick 100% of the time because it takes precise alignment and it often takes longer to get into position than it would to just approach them and swap positions while fighting. One of the most common tricks in Prince of Persia is to tap down after knocking out a ceiling tile. The falling masonry won't hurt him as long as he's in his standing up animation, but if you remain crouching too long, it'll smash him for 2 hit points instead. There's a big skip coming up here. If you jump into this wall then turn around to take a running jump off, you're at the perfect position to sail straight through the wall and the gate at the cost of a health point, one of the 2 places on this run where the trick involves getting hurt. The guard on the ledge above is notoriously problematic because if you get knocked off the ledge by him, you're never going to get back up. Level 7, 8 and 9 are all very long and really demonstrate the advantages that doing a tool-assisted speedrun gives you. Normally I'd let some slight mistakes go during these levels if I'd done most of them perfectly, but having the ability to slow down, save and reload lets you take a lot of risks you normally wouldn't. The choppers I just went through are a great example of this, as you really need to hold your nerve to be in mid-jump right in between them without being bisected by either. This level's last trick is the green potion here, which allows you to float safely down to the ground below. However, it oddly happens to be in a place where you can dangle off the ledge and get down with just a bruise anyway. All that remains now is to open the exit door and move on to level 8. The 8th level is usually the worst one to speedrun because of the number of things that have to go right in it. However, by using save states, we bypass most of that problem, and the only really difficult part remains at the very start. This guard at the top here is unique because he waits for you to make a move before he reacts. All the others have at least some chance to move first to strike you. I know there must be a way to get past him faster, but he just wasn't cooperating with my attempts to switch places with him, and in the end I gave up and pushed him into the spikes mostly out of spite. After making my way down here, there's a long stretch where I'll keep jumping on my way to the right, where we get to preview all the obstacles that we'll need to go past on our way back to the left. In the meantime, the reason I started at level 4 a couple of minutes ago was because the game has a documented practice mode you can activate by using Shift and L at any point before then. This reduces your timer to 15 minutes and is meant to make the game impossible to complete, but I'm defying that expectation as part of the speedrun. Even if you're pressing the jump key in a regular rhythm, the Prince will adjust his own timing for jumps during the game if he's near the edge of a platform or an obstacle. You just have to make sure you're not jumping in such a way that you'll land directly on spikes. The guards are really the only unpredictable thing about the run, and therefore the most frustrating. Having said that, I actually found it interesting that when stepping through the game frame by frame to write the TAS inputs, you lose a lot of the sense of the game's rhythm, and I actually had to go over to DOSBox and play some sections for real to remember what felt like the most efficient way through. Having got to the right-hand side here, we have an intricate series of doors, guards, choppers and loose tiles to navigate, and this section is quite a good example of what I just mentioned. Having save states available saves having to memorise the layout of the dungeon ahead, but completely eliminates your surprisingly important muscle memory. You'll notice in a minute that I get the 10 minutes left notification quite a while after the 5-minute mark in the video, suggesting the game's timer isn't quite aligned with real time. This section here is a bit odd because I could make it over to the other side faster just by doing a running jump and climbing up through the opening gate, but I want to make sure that I've already got momentum as the gate is opening, so I back up and running jump at it instead. The reason for this is because you're meant to get trapped here and have to be rescued by the mouse, but we're going to be fast enough to get in and out without the door closing on us. Normally I would jump through the door and land on the ground below at the loss of a health point, but in a TAS scenario I was able to chop off enough time to afford to jump a little further forward than usual and to be able to cling onto the other side and not get hurt. This stops you from waiting around while the Prince gets up again after falling. Level 9 has a nice small skip at the very start. We jump through this door because it's counted as passable at this exact height and that exact frame of the Prince's jumping animation, and the level is laid out in a way that makes it very easy for the two to coincide. This is the longest level by miles. We'll be spending nearly 2.5 minutes in here, but most of it is quite simple and there's far less opportunity to mess up than the amount of precision you need to speedrun level 8. This, however, does seem like a blunder. I should have pushed the guard back further here so he didn't wander onto this screen and make me draw my sword again, but it's possible that hitting him again would have taken up as many frames anyway. Level 9 has a couple of sections like this where you're just climbing up for ages and there isn't a whole lot that you can do to speed yourself up. However, I did experiment here with making a sliding turn instead of stopping and turning to get up to the last floor. Real time is also something you lose a sense of when making a TAS. I thought it might be faster, even though it obviously takes years, so it's important to keep an eye on the frame counter and try out multiple things to find the most efficient way. This is a pretty simple guard skip. We just have to make sure we don't hit the closing tile in front of the door on the way back. This is actually a part that I complained about as being very hard when I did this in a normal speedrun. You have to turn at a very precise moment here to knock the tile down and make it back without falling. However, just by chance, this time I got it completely right the first time and didn't even need to re-record, so there you go. Here's another long section where I just have to climb up endless floors and go through the game the normal route, and there really aren't any possible shortcuts to speak of, which is a pretty large contributor to how long level 9 is. I was actually very surprised when I was making the video to find the clip for level 9 was 2 minutes and 18 seconds, the one for level 8 is 1 minute 57, and no other level comes anywhere near the 2 minute mark unless you count all 3 sections of the last level together. I think that the idea was to keep you worried about the timer, having the levels in the middle being the longest and most awkward of the game, but then to back off a bit again and give you some shorter ones afterwards. Level 10, coming up next, is one of the shortest levels to get through even without any skips. There's an annoying amount of precise alignment here again, and I'm not totally sure if I did it as fast as possible, but the idea is to line ourselves up to take advantage of another poorly understood bug where you drop 2 stories and cling onto a platform above a chopper, which prevents it from noticing that you're there. This makes the next section trivial without having to worry about timing our dash through the doors, and then we're back on our way to the right, having made a long loop up and to the left around the room with the exit door in it that we passed through a couple of times already. We've just got one chopper guard combination to dodge our way through before we reach it, and the tile we dropped earlier has held open the gate on the top left of the room to let us through and open the exit. The fastest way down, unfortunately, is to take some damage and land ourselves right outside the door, causing a delay but bypassing having to turn around, drop down and turn again to line ourselves up with the exit. This is the first of 2 times that we'll be using a bug that I don't fully understand. If you switch screens to the left and then down within a couple of frames, the game accidentally switches your screen up instead of down and dumps you out at the top instead. To do that, we have to line ourselves up with a step and a hop, then jump to the left so we just pass the lower right corner of the screen to the left before changing the screen screen again downwards. This puts us in the screen above, which is nowhere, so the prince falls back down mysteriously onto the top floor and can continue back to the left. Having done that, we're now just a couple of screens away from the end of the level, but we have another unusual section approaching because it's the first time we actually have to stand and fight a guard. Technically, it might be possible to leave him alive if we were doing a pacifist run, but we need to knock out the tile above where we're fighting in order to open the door, so it's much better to prevent him from interfering. Once that's done, we'll go to the left and take advantage of another strangeness in the movement, where we fall down 2 stories but hit the wall at the exact same time so that we skip the prince's falling damage delay and can immediately turn around and face the guard at the bottom. The prince automatically strikes once, again for reasons I'm not sure about, but after that we can swap sides with the guard and run away once more. Level 11 is an odd one, where the intended route through involves having to find a shortcut among the hundreds of falling tiles. By the way, on the left there, I think that's the first time we've laid eyes on a health boosting potion in the entire run. They're usually hidden out of the way, but that one's placed tantalisingly out of reach from the entrance. This is the shortcut we're looking for. Instead of fighting this guard, we want to go up and over him, knock tiles down to get rid of the closing tiles in the room below, and then set ourselves up for a jump. By the way, that's not your video skipping. The emulator I was using just had difficulty when too many objects were moving, which was irritating and certainly affected my time a bit. Perhaps I set it up a bit wrong. I tried to take advantage of a bug just there where the prince can step over a one-tile pit if he's on a certain frame of his running jump animation, but he was unexpectedly able to start the jump early instead, so I didn't have to use it. After this jump coming up, level 11 is basically a straight shot that wouldn't look out of place in a much earlier level, but there's a very difficult arrangement of tiles here where it's really unclear what the best way past is. I've seen people able to bunny hop forward straight after landing so that they don't fall down, but I couldn't get the timing right for some reason, so my way past is this awkward method of tapping the falling tile above, climbing down so that it doesn't hit me on the head, then straight back up again and onto ground level. We have to knock a guard down again here, just to make things easier for ourselves later. We have to come back along this corridor just after finding the button that opens the exit, back to the left, so to avoid fighting him twice, we knock him down to the lower platform so that we can sail over his head on the way back. A brief drop down and climb later, that's exactly what we do, and a few hops to make sure we leave the screen on the left before the guard has time to wake up put us into the final level with just over 10 minutes spent on the clock. Like every level in the game, level 12 is an interesting one that has a couple of strange shortcuts and a couple of things that look like shortcuts but aren't. Uniquely, it's split up into 3 sections which are internally levels 12, 13 and 14, but the game stops counting after 12. It's a very vertical level that involves a ton of climbing, as you'd expect from the final tower. The last time I did a speedrun I mentioned a mistaken shortcut above here where you can knock out a tile above you to skip the left half of the level, but the normal way is faster. This isn't quite true. The intended route is to jump all the way to the left and climb up there, but Jordan either didn't notice or didn't mind that it was possible to climb up the middle tower instead. Either way, this unexpectedly saves time compared to the tile dropping way. We've definitely got to knock out a tile above here to continue our climb upwards though, and incidentally, by the end of this video I'll have motored through a commentary script of 3,500 words in just over 12 minutes as well. This is the second place where we can take advantage of the screen switching bug. There's a ledge we're going to hit to the left. Normally you can't running jump on a 2-tile wide platform, but you can do it by sliding at the edge going in the other direction first. We cling onto the platform on the left and are catapulted the screen up to climb through a solid tile onto the top of the tower. You're meant to see this sword when you climb up on the left there to open a door in the section we skipped, and by the time you come back to the screen it's disappeared, but we avoided that so we'll pick it up ourselves. You can move while the prince is refusing with the shadow here, but there's an invisible bridge on the left which confusingly only activates once the flashing is stopped. This was as frame perfect as I could get it, so the prince's foot fell the instant the bridge was there. This is a famously annoying section among speedrunners of the game, and the emulator doesn't like it much either because these tiles are entirely random in the order that they fall. I just reloaded from a position just before entering this half of the level until I happened to get a good pattern that I could jump through without being clobbered on the head. Finally, on the right we'll enter our face-off with Jafar, the ultimate enemy of the game, a struggle that will be far beyond anything we've yet seen. Alternatively, we could just poke him off the edge. And that is the end of the game. The game's own timer has now stopped, and the time on the video says I did it in just a quarter of a second under 12 minutes, but speedruns are measured until the last input to get to the ending sequence, so we have to go and tell the princess she's free. This is just a tiny extra section with no fatal obstacles at all, though you can still mess up your speedrun here by jumping too early and bumping your head against the doors. Nevertheless, this is the final room and we can declare time. 12 real-time minutes, 20.59-ish seconds. I believe that is the world TAS record for DOS Prince of Persia, but only because nobody else has attempted it, and I've invented the level 4 skip category. I'm certain that much better ones are possible. I might even go back and tidy up some of the parts of this myself and repost it, though I'll try next time to find a more appropriate way of annotating it than this breathless audio commentary.